What's up, YouTube? Been a while. Working on a KTM 790 Adventure R 2019 model. We're going to be installing a Rekluse RadiusX today. Pretty cool clutch. If you guys don't know anything about them, they allow a manual clutch to operate as a manual as well as an auto clutch. So if you come to stop in gear or whatever, you don't want to pull in the clutch or you stall or you're in the woods, the bike won't stall out. It acts like it's in neutral. Really neat concept. So this is how the Rekluse comes packaged. This is actually their super slick plate. There's weights right here, and as those come out, this plate expands. You can see kind of how the crack opens up a little bit. Rekluse does their own fiber plates. There's two different styles in this kit. I think these are like 1.7 millimeters, and these are slightly thinner. We've marked all these just so we can kind of show you guys the difference in thickness and make it easy, but they have 4 different thicknesses for this particular clutch. And then right here we have little steel inserts that go in the clutch basket, and so we'll install these. To change how quick the clutch engages right off of idle, we have springs, and they come in different weights. And we just push down, turn counterclockwise, it releases. We have the blue spring. You guys can see how that engages.
Got it.
New spring, set that in, see how it's indexed there. And as you saw, the screw was indexed, so we'll push that in. Turn it to lock, and we're good. We need to go ahead and soak the fiber plates, get those soaking in oil. Utilize the same oil that recommended for the bike. In this case, we're going to use Motorex 1550. And we'll just utilize the bag that it came with, pour some oil in here, and put the fiber plates in. Let them soak for a few minutes. That's good. So here we go. We're going to go ahead and pull this apart. On this particular clutch, it's a little bit easier because it doesn't look like we have a hydraulic slave cylinder that we're going to be installing. We're going to just be using the traditional setup that they have on this. But the oil level is low enough where it doesn't look like we have to drain the oil, which is great. So we just need to pull the clutch cover off. It looks like, I don't know, 8 or 10 bolts here. And we're gonna go ahead and pull this right hand foot stay off as well. So the center stand is mounted to it. So what we've done is gone ahead and put the bike on a rear stand. That way when we pull the center stand bolts out, we don't have to worry about that. So go ahead and get started here. This looks like a T50. Torx bit. Thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the bracket that holds the clutch cable on. I'm going to go ahead and pull that bracket off the clutch cover so that we can remove the clutch cover itself. And once we remove this black bracket, we'll be able to slip the clutch cable right out of the arm on the back side. So You can see right here it has just indexed. So as long as you have enough free play in the cable, you can just loosen that up and slip it right off. And we can kind of tuck this out of the way so it's not bothering us. Once you just crack all the bolts loose, what we like to do is use a dead blow hammer, and we just tap the cover lightly, and that allows the cover to come off of the gasket without cracking the gasket, because Rekluse doesn't send us an extra gasket. So if we give it a light tap after the bolts are loosened enough, just a turn or so, it'll help. Sometimes you'll hear a slight pop as that cover comes loose, and then we can go ahead and remove the bolts the rest of the way. In this case, it's an O-ring, but still, with O-ring or a gasket, just helps facilitate ease of removal by tapping that with a hammer. So here we have our pressure plate and our actuator. You can see here on the clutch basket, the OEM clutch basket, on the last plate here, the last fiber plate, it's clocked just a little bit. So you can see all the plates are in line all the way through until the last basket. This is how they do it for the manufacturer. When we go back with the Rekluse setup, this plate will not be indexed here. It'll actually be in line with the rest of the plates. Pay no mind to the paint marks, that's just for manufacturing. A cross pattern. Get away from me. Here's some pressure plate springs. Rekluse has sent us 3 of their own, so we will not reuse these either. And the pressure plate should just slip out. We will be using pressure plate. So we will be reusing this clutch basket. So we won't have to loosen the inner hub, I don't believe. Not on this setup. On the Rekluse Core EXPs, they come with their own inner hub, and so you do end up taking this clutch hub nut off. Like I said, we won't have to on this, so we can just kind of slide the whole clutch pack out and leave the basket internal. We might have to use a pick or something to help facilitate get some of the plates out. So I'm just pulling these out with the pick. We also have this spring. Go ahead and pull this out in case it comes out with the clutch pack. There's 2 different springs that are in here, and they're anti-chatter springs, and they will be reused. This one's actually kind of stuck to the inner hub, so I can't get it out easily, but it's just the oil allowing it to stick. That particular washer that's still in there is flat, and so the flat washer goes in first. This particular washer is domed, so it's a dish. It's like a bowl, and I'll see if I can show that to you. These are the little steel inserts that Rekluse has sent with us with the kit. They go on the basket, the OEM clutch basket, and kind of show you there's not much that retains them other than friction. They're sprung a little bit, you can see, and that's kind of how they hold in until the clutch plates go in. And they do have a shoulder on them or a backing. This backing piece goes towards the inside of the clutch on all of them, so it will go that way towards the center hub nut. So each one will just be pushed in, slides all the way, and they'll be recessed about 1 millimeter or so from the end of the basket. And we'll just work our way around with each one. Now that we have them all inserted, we'll just make sure that they're sitting evenly. And like I said before, you should have about 1 millimeter difference between the end of the basket and the end of the clips that they sent. So this is the updated revision. They sent 2 revisions. One we talked about earlier as far as swapping out some of the blue springs with the gold or the silver springs, which we did. The other revision is the way that the clutch pack is put together. So there's a couple key differences on this as far as which thickness plate goes where in the clutch setup. And so make sure that you have the revision sheet, especially if your clutch was shipped out prior to November 1st, 2019 for this bike. So the first clutch plate we're going to put in is going to be a 3 millimeter. We're going to have 3 of these, and there's 2 different style friction plates, and this is what's going to go in first. So we went ahead and measured all these plates before we got started, marked them with magic marker just so we could show you guys. But we're going to start with a 1.5 millimeter and then work our way with a couple 1.0 millimeters. And yeah, we'll get started with that. Our next plate is going to be a 1.0, followed by another thin friction disc. Thin friction. So I believe is our last 1.0 to go in. Followed by the all magical centrifugal plate. Awesome stuff here. So this doesn't really have an orientation that it goes. You can go either way. Be followed by 1.2 millimeter. And the rest of the clutch pack we're actually going to assemble in the pressure plate and then take the pressure plate and put it onto the clutch inner hub and bolt everything together. So at this point you should have 3 plates left. You should have your 1.7 millimeter and 2 3.0 friction plates. Okay, so we have the pressure plate left to install and the springs supplied by Rekluse. The last 3 plates, instead of getting stacked into the clutch hub and basket, we're actually putting them on the pressure plate and then taking the pressure plate and putting it up. So make sure everything's bearings good, no damage. This is a pretty new bike, so but everything looks good on this. So. Now that we have the 3 plates stacked on here, I'm going to go ahead and hold this. And Kind of have to massage that on gently, turn it both counterclockwise and clockwise. No force. And then you can see the plates are all the way bottomed out. Once you have that assembled, we can go ahead and take the springs that are supplied by Rekluse, which are painted in blue and white, and we're going to discard the OEM clutch springs. So we'll take these springs and go ahead and place them here. And then we also are we'll reuse the bolts, however, this does not get reused. Rekluse has sent us different. If you're using anything like an impact driver, which I am, just be very careful. I don't use this to drive them all the way on. I just use this because it saves my wrist and makes things go a little bit easier. But you want even pressure. Once they're bottomed out, we'll snug them up before we torque them. You refer to your service manual for torque specs. We're going to go ahead and, now that we have all the clutch assembled, everything looks good, we're going to go ahead and put the cover back on. This particular cover has an O-ring. It's not damaged in any way, so no need to replace that. It's clean, and yeah, everything looks good. So go ahead and put that back on. There's a couple different link bolts for that clutch cover. I think there's 7 total. You will know if they're in the right place. The same amount of thread should be exposed when you push the bolts in, so you'll be able to tell if they're in the wrong spots. You can see all of the bolts are exposed the same amount, about. So we're in the right spot, and then we'll just torque these down in a cross pattern. Fish out our cable that we put up there. We'll go ahead and hook our cable into the back side of the bracket. And then Rekluse has its own adjustment procedure, so what we're going to do is go ahead and crack the cable loose down here on the bracket, and then we'll make an adjustment both on the lower bracket, and we'll make an adjustment up top on the clutch perch, but we'll go ahead and do that now. And it's just two 12 millimeters. So Rekluse has had us collapse the adjuster up at the top of the lever and expose only 3 to 4 threads on the bottom of this cable. So that's what we've done. We've gone ahead and gone up to the lever and collapsed this drum adjuster. Pretty easy. You just break the ring loose here, turning it counterclockwise, and then you screw the smaller portion in towards the lever, and that will collapse it all the way. Once it's collapsed, then you can go ahead and go to the bottom side where we broke the 2 12 millimeter nuts loose and just exposed 3 to 4 threads on the bottom of the cable. You guys see we're just about finished up. We went ahead and put the 3 bolts in, or 4 bolts that hold the center stand, and the 2 bolts that hold the brake caliper, or the brake reservoir, master cylinder reservoir. Put those on, and Yeah, we're just about finished. We're going to lower the bike down and make an adjustment up top on the clutch cable, and that pretty much finishes it up as far as all the adjustments, and then we'll do the break-in procedure. So we'll go ahead and lower this thing down. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and make the adjustment up top on the clutch lever. There's two different ways we can do this. We can do it by ourselves with a set of pliers up top, or we can do it down on the lower section. We're gonna put another person to hold the lever, to hold the arm in and alleviate all the pressure up here. The problem is that since we took all the slack out of the cable on the bottom, this drum is gonna have tension all the time. So we've got to come out like 7 turns up here. So you can either, like I said, either use a set of pliers up here, be real careful not to mar it up, or use 2 people. And the way we're going to use 2 people, which we're going to do in this case, we're going to go ahead and pull in the clutch lever. And as we hold the clutch lever in, Warren's going to hold this arm where it can't move. And once he does that, there's no pressure up top. We can come out the 7 turns. I pull in the clutch lever up at the top, and Warren's going to hold that arm in to alleviate all the pressure, and then I'm going to come out 7 turns on the barrel. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the clutch lever in. He's going to hold that, and I can rotate that drum 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and if you're wondering how I was counting, I just indexed it with a little magic marker. And then we can go ahead and lock this jam nut back tight. And we are good. This is going to be far different than having any free play. We actually take out all the free play on this style setup, so the clutch lever slams hard. Just part of it. That pretty much wraps it up as far as the install. We're going to go ahead and make sure that our free play gain is good to go, and then take it on a test ride. Yeah.